So today we're going to talk about time blocking. So it's also known as hyperscheduling, time batching, time blocking, calendar scheduling, day theming. It has a lot of different variations to it. What I want to do in today's video is just show you my take on it and how I implement it. So you can do it analog, you can do it digital, you can make it as complicated as you want, you can make it as simple as you want. I think the more important aspect is that you practice the principles to get the benefits out of it. So the benefits that I've seen with time blocking or batching is you decide up front in your day what you're going to get accomplished with the time that you have. You set realistic expectations and boundaries, and you make those trade-off decisions up front instead of getting to the end of the day and having to make rash decisions. So for me, the 4 main steps of how you can even implement this, the first is you need to gather a to-do list. You can brain dump this and just write it out morning of. You might have a system you pull from. The next step is to take those items on your to-do list and to actually batch them into different blocks of time. And this is a time management technique in and of itself, is that you should do like with like. If you have to write one email, get all your emailing done together because you have the programs up, you're in the mindset, you're in the mode, ready to go. If you need to film one video, you might as well film all the videos that you need to film. For me, this changes on a daily basis how I do this. Sometimes it is by the mindset that I'm in. What's everything that I need to focus on? What's all the stuff that's kind of this creative work? Sometimes it's by role. You know, if I have a whole bunch of tasks that relate to the revenue side of my job, and then a whole bunch of tasks that relate to the people management side of my job, it might make sense to actually do those collectively because I'm in the zone and in the groove. Take that really, really long list of all those little things and figure out what makes the most sense to group it by. Then after you have those groups or those blocks, estimate how long you need to do that particular thing. So if you are going to batch all of your emails together, maybe you can do that in 30 minutes. Maybe you need an hour. If you have one report, maybe you need 2 hours for that one report. And then the last step is to actually go in and schedule those blocks into your calendar. So your calendar is kind of your guiding template. I think one thing that's really beneficial to have worked through before you start this is the idea of what your ideal day is. So if you were to say, okay, I got 24 hours in a day, what is the ideal way that I spend it? I sleep from this time to this time. I have my morning routine and exercise from here to here. I do lunch from here to here. I do family related things in the evening from this time to this time. I do dinner from here to here. Then you start to see the pockets of work that you can actually do. So for me, I have 3 2-hour sessions for work. I have 1 2-hour session for personal, and then 1 2-hour session for family and dinner and all of that. I work longer than 6 hours, but I have these other time commitments or times blocked out to do other things at work. Be aware that this is just a plan, but the idea is that you've set your intentions for the day. You've made the decisions of what you're going to do and what you're not going to do up front. And as the day progresses, you can always go back to this and say, where am I? You can check in on it.
So I want to walk you through how I do this on a daily basis. So the first step is to gather the to-do list. So for me, inside of OmniFocus, this requires going into my tags database and rolling my day of the week tag over. So we'll do that. Then if I go back to my today perspective, this is everything that I have tagged to do today that needs to be done. That's the first step. I'll kind of come through here and I'll say, okay, brainstorm layout and do these next steps. Yeah, this isn't actually going to be done until Thursday, so I can clean that up. I can say, I got the mail already. I just didn't check that off. Marinate chicken, that's no longer something I need to do anymore. And so I'll kind of clean it up based upon what I'm doing. I'm a little behind on doing this class, so I'm only going to do 1 session. So I'll roll that to Thursday. So now we just have one 30-minute session. And let's see, all this stuff is good in here, and I've already done that. So that's basically my list for today. So now the next step is to actually go in and plan out how I'm going to block out this time. So this is something I use Notion for because OmniFocus for me holds all the super nitty-gritty detail. I have these very detailed steps for doing this project and take a photo and edit the photo. And I have, okay, for the side hustle, there's these individual tasks, but I'm actually going to kind of batch these into similar time. And so I actually use Notion to do this. So I have a daily log and I create a new page for every day. And I have a whole bunch of other fields on this, but really the piece where this information goes is in this blocks area. So the way the blocks is set up is that the day has to be today, and it also needs to link to today's daily page. So what I'll do here is I'll look at my to-do list and I'll kind of say, okay, how can I block and batch these items? So I have a different slice of today by areas of my life. So this is everything I need to do for work. So I'm going to say, okay, for revenue reporting, I have to do this report, and then these are some cleanup things. For invoicing, I need to do some invoice reviews. I need to run some invoices. I have a couple little credits that I need to get cleaned up for some clients, and I have email. So even though this is 22 different actions, I'm going to block this time up. So let's start with my reports because these take me a while. So ARR reporting, B&B reporting. Next, let's see, we also had, I need to do some invoicing work. I have some email, and then I have some credits to work on. So this distills down into 5 different tasks from these 22 individual actions in here. And then when I am in my blocks, this is where I really like Notion because depending on how I want to run my day, I can tag and look at it in different ways. So in here, I like to set the priority. So what is the number one thing that I get done? I need to get invoices sent today. This report is my second, and this report is my third. And all these other ones are just nice to haves. So it's kind of a way of implementing your top 3. If you could only do 3 things today, what are the 3 things that are going to make the difference? None of these have been started. And the next thing I do is I look at this block and I say, okay, how many Pomodoros is it going to take me? And I like to do my time in terms of Pomodoros because that's the time technique that I use. You could say, okay, how many hours? You could say how many minutes, however you want to do it. But for me, to run invoices, that's probably going to be 3 blocks of time or an hour and a half. So each Pomodoro is about 30 minutes. ARR reporting, I think that's going to take me 2 hours. Book not billed reporting, I think will take me probably about 2 hours as well. Email I can get done in 30 minutes, and credits I can also get done in 30 minutes. So right there, I've laid out how much time each of these is going to take me. The other way that sometimes I like to view my tasks, I don't do this every day, but again, Notion is flexible enough, is if you've heard of the Eisenhower matrix of the urgent versus important, I can also tag tasks like that as well. And I'll show you where this comes in handy. So, getting invoices out the door, that is an urgent and an important task. ARR reporting, it's not quite due yet. I still have a few days, but it is very important. Same with this book not billed. Email, there's some urgent stuff in there, but it's not super important. And then credits, it's just keeping up to date with it. So I'll say not urgent and not important. And all of these relate to my work area of life. So Then I would do this for my personal tasks as well. I'm just going to show you in terms of my work items. So the next thing is deciding which block of time this goes into. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my calendar and say, okay, what do I actually need to be scheduling? So when I pop over here, I have a baseline calendar already set up in Fantastical, which makes this really easy because I've already said my ideal day is I have this 2-hour focus block of time, I have this 2-hour focus block of time, and then I have this personal block of time, so on and so forth. Typically, I have a third block here for work. I removed it today because I was already adjusting this at the beginning of the week, but typically on a standard week, I have 3 2-hour sections. I'm also filming this in the morning because I have a little bit of capacity right now to get this done. So as you can see, I'm not technically following my focus block for today, but that's just because of this demonstration. So if I were doing this in the morning, let's say it's 8 a.m., I have 2 hours, 2 hours, and 2 other hours. If I come in here, I'm saying, well, I got 2 tasks that are going to take up 2 full blocks of time right away. So I know I need to get these scheduled. But my invoicing is the most important task. So I also need to be aware of that. So if I say, okay, invoicing queue, that's my most important, that's what I need to get done first. And that's going to take me an hour and a half. Let's go ahead and get that scheduled in here. So let's do today 9 to 10:30 invoicing queue, and I'm going to do this on my work time management calendar. So I have this highlight in a different color. So I still have 30 minutes of this block that I could do something else. Really, these big reports I want to do all at one time. I don't want to split that up. So I'm going to take my next most important thing, which is going to be getting caught up on email, and plugging that in as well. So we'll just say email, and we'll assign it to my work time management calendar. So now I have focus block number 1 used up. And I'll say these fall inside of block 1. So then it's pretty easy from there. ARR reporting is my next one. Book not billed is my next. So let's do 11:30 to 1:30. ARR reporting. This goes on my work time management calendar. And then here we will have B&B reporting time management. And then I'm into my personal block of time. So this I gave to block 2, and this I gave to block 3. And this is where the Tetris game really comes to light, and it really shows you how little time you have. Because credits is not something that I can fit in my day right now. I'm looking and I'm saying, I am booked up for work. There's a chance that I could finish some of these quicker. There's also the chance that I get pulled into a different direction on a different project and I don't even get this done. But before I even start my day, I know that this here is pretty unattainable. So I can say, do I want to cut into my personal time? I really don't. I have some other things I need to do today. So this is one thing that I might say, we're just going to migrate it to tomorrow. I'm going to acknowledge that I wanted to do it. It is here if I want to come back, but it's not going to be something I can get done today. So that's how that process works. In here, I could come in and say, yep, I am calling this a tomorrow problem, and take it off the to-do list. And now all of those are scheduled. And the way that I have this sorted is I first have it sorted by the done column. So anything that gets checked off as migrated or completed goes to the bottom of the list. The next is by the time. So I want all my work tasks to organize together, and then all my personal. priority is the next, and then the block is the next. So I can say, yeah, I have this scheduled for block 1, but it's really not in my top priority list. What's cool about that is I could look at it by block. So here I can say, okay, now I'm viewing my time by block. This is also another great way to see if you've overscheduled for a particular chunk of time. So I have 3 plus 1 is 4, which is 2 hours. So that's one block, that's another, and that's another. So if I'm working for these next 2 hours, I can look at just my blocks together. If I'm getting near the end of the day and I'm saying, okay, I got completely bombarded today by other things, what can I push off? This is where I come into my matrix. And let's just hide some of these properties to clean this up a little bit. So this is where I could come into the matrix and say, okay, urgent and important needs to get done today. So that needs to stay. These aren't urgent, but they are important, which means I should prioritize those as much as I can. Urgent and important, typically needs to be done because something is urgent about it. But I have the information here if I want to say, yeah, you know what, email, I'm just not going to get my inbox done today. So that can go away. So now I'm left with these 3 things that I need to complete today. And when I have my personal and I have my family tasks in here, I can really play that game of, okay, do I cut into personal time to do some work stuff, or do I make sure I cut off work at a certain time because I have some family commitments I need to get done? The other way I organize this is just by status. So sometimes I get stuck during the day with a whole bunch of tasks that I'm waiting for other people to get back to me on. So I can kind of see it by a queue of what's available to work on, because maybe everything I have scheduled for block 1 is now waiting. And everything for block 3 is now waiting. But what can I actually work on now? So that's the nice thing about how Notion is set up, is I can look at it in so many different ways. And when I say, okay, great, invoicing queue, I'm going to work on that. I know that if I come back to OmniFocus, I have a perspective that shows me everything for invoicing for today, and I'll start working through this list. And then ARR reporting. This is one simple task, but it's going to take me a while. So I don't need a reference, a checklist inside of OmniFocus. I just know I'm going to work on that report. And same thing when I do this B&B reporting. And then my email, again, there's not a specific task for it, but I go to my email and I start to process all those items. So again, the first step is to get your list for today. Figure out how you do that. Are you just writing it on paper? Do you have a system set up? Next is to organize those tasks into blocks of time and estimate how long those are going to take you. Don't look at your calendar yet. Don't try to fit that in. Just honest guess, how much time do these areas require? Then you're actually going to slot in those different items. So this is where you go to your calendar and you say, all right, what is my capacity looking like? What can I actually get accomplished? Maybe I have a So maybe, let's say I actually have a meeting that just got scheduled and I'm like, ooh, you know what? This reporting, I'm actually not going to get as much time as I want done. And let's just pretend this is a 30-minute call. So let's say I have this meeting that's popped up in the middle of this block of time for me, which is very common. I have my work meeting calendar hidden in this view because I have a lot of client names on it and whatnot, but I have a ton of meetings that I'm constantly working around. And I'm saying, yeah, you know what? For me to get in the groove for this reporting, it does not work for me to split this up. So maybe I'm going to tailor this back to just be an hour for today. I'm just going to spend 1 hour of time working on that. 30 minutes of that block is also used up by a meeting, so I can't schedule another task in. And maybe I'm looking at this 30-minute block here and I'm like, yeah, maybe I carry some email over, or maybe I want to use that as just some buffer time. Or maybe I could come back to this list and say, hey, you know what? Credits I pushed off. Let me actually process some credits on that. So that's where your calendar is kind of your ultimate guide for the day, because it's finite. Like, you only have so many hours in the day that you can put stuff in, and you have to make that fit. Your task list can be infinite, but your calendar is what's going to drive your next actions. So if I ever come to the point, let's say I got out of 2 unexpected meetings, I got a couple emails with some fire drills in it, finally got all that put out, I'm like, oh my God, like, where am I today? I can look at my calendar and say, well, maybe now it's like 4 p.m. I've done none of this. So I know that I cannot take this chunk of time and reasonably fit it in the rest of the day. So I'm going to have to make some decisions. Let's come back. What was my top priority? How am I progressing on that? Also, what's the most urgent? And you can kind of play that game. So to be able to get back on track and readdress is a really quick process when you've had this map. You might not follow it, you might not hit it, but you can redirect pretty easily from it.
After seeing that, where do you start? If you've never approached this, where do you start? How do you start to implement this? Because it's not going to be an instant switch. It's something that takes time and takes practice. I would say first, start with getting what your ideal day looks like. Think about what makes the most sense. Is your type of work very cyclical, day to day, week to week, month to month? Is it sporadic? Can you theme and batch types of things on different days? Think about what makes the most sense and kind of work that into your ideal day as well. You can have your ideal day with times blocked out, but then you can theme your day. And when you have a task, you can apply it to those different days. For me, one way that I implement this is I try to have Mondays and Wednesdays be very deep focused work. So I try not to schedule meetings. Those little annoying tasks that don't take very long or don't require a lot of mental energy, I try not to put on those days. I try to say, here are the big projects. Here's the time to actually get those projects done. Then Tuesdays and Thursdays are more of my meeting days. So I'm in and out of meetings all day long. I can get these little tasks done in between. It's not a good day to sit down and get one project done start to finish. That's going to take 5 hours. So once you kind of have an idea of your ideal day, think about your systems and your tools. How can you better align those to support that? If you are going to do all of your filming on one day, how can you get a very clean and easy list of all of your filming at that time? Do you make that each week? Do you have a system set up ready for it? Then once you kind of have those pieces set up, just practice these steps and evolve as you go. The first time you make that task list, it might be really ugly. You might realize halfway through the day that you forgot 10 different things because they were in this other app or on this other piece of paper. And you might say, okay, it's going to take me some time to schedule this. You might spend 30 minutes trying to actually schedule your day. You will get quicker. It becomes easier the more that you implement that habit. When I started, I probably spent 20 to 30 minutes trying to do just these 4 tasks each day. And now I can probably easily do it within 5 to 10 minutes because I have the system set up. It's integrated. I have the foundation in place. It's also one of those that the first time you do this, you are going to have way more on your list than you can fit into that calendar. That is scary. That also takes a lot of energy to sit there and say, okay, let's move this. Okay, let's not do this. Like, you're shuffling a lot through that process. The more you get used to how much time you have and how you schedule it, the less and less you're going to have to reallocate those tasks, which makes that process go quicker as well. So try some of these techniques out, see if you can get some efficiency out of it, Like I said, the most important piece of this is that you're intentional with your time. You're actually thinking through how you want to spend your time for the day, and you're making your to-do list align with that expectation. And keep in mind, your ideal day should include downtime, fun time, family time. It should not just be work, work, work. Doing that, you will protect that time and be able to enjoy that guilt-free. Your mind is not sitting there like, oh, what didn't I accomplish today? What didn't I get done? Because you made your list, you made your choices up front, and you know what you're not going to get to. So try it out. If you want to see a little bit more about my OmniFocus or Notion setups, I'll link those videos down below as well. If you have other questions about this method or want to see anything in more detail, leave a comment as well, and we'll see you in the next video.